Welcome to day 46 of our scripture reading and encouragement. Today we're going to cover Numbers chapter 6 and chapter 7, and we're going to start into Mark chapter 5 covering verses 1 through 20. So as we pick up in Numbers, God starts with instructions for something called a Nazirite. So he says a Nazirite is someone who has set themselves apart for the Lord in a special way. So God is asking all of his people to be set apart. The priests have been set apart in a different way. Now we're defining this term Nazirite, which is someone who is setting themselves apart for the Lord in an even more special way. To give you an example, one of the most notable Nazirites that we'll learn about later in our scripture reading, but most of us have heard of, is Samson. So the word Nazirite comes from a Hebrew word, or nazar, which means to abstain from. So God is saying, if you're going to be a Nazirite, I'm going to give you these special tasks or gifts or purpose, but you have to abstain. You have to be different. You have to be even more set apart. So he says for them, no wine or strong drink, can't even drink grape juice, can't even touch a grape or anything that comes off the grapevine, cannot cut your hair, cannot touch the dead. So they've got some specific instructions that set them apart further for special service. And again, we'll see this when we get to a later portion where we talk about Samson. Then God gives the priestly blessing. He tells Aaron and his sons to bless the people of Israel with a special blessing. And this is a blessing that many of us have grown up hearing in church, or we've heard in different places. Maybe you knew where it came from, maybe you didn't. But it's in Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 through 26. I'm reading this out of the New Living Translation. It says, may the Lord bless you and protect you. You may have heard a version that said, may the Lord protect you and keep you, for example. But this one says, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show his favor and give you peace. What a special blessing. And God said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons to give this blessing to the people of Israel. And whenever Aaron and his sons bless the people of Israel in my name, I myself will bless them. So I want you to hear these words this morning and let it be an encouragement to you. As we transition into Numbers chapter 7, Moses sets up the tabernacle. He's been given all the instructions, who's going to do what. Now he sets it up, and they start this very elaborate system of offerings. And I'm sitting here watching, they're going through 12 days of these sacrifices, and it's just many animals, lots of silver and gold. And I'm just reminded once again, I'm going to bring this back to the simplistic reminder. Look at the elaborate system of offerings that Jesus replaced, him being the ultimate lamb. Look at what he replaced for us. And just rest knowing and be encouraged today that Jesus came to be that ultimate sacrifice for you. Now, I hope when you see the elaborate system of offerings that had to be done in that time, that you will not only appreciate and understand what Jesus did for you more, but it would be an encouragement for you to live a set apart life, for you to be different, for you to try hard to live a better life through Jesus, being more like Jesus. Because what he did on the cross was more than just give us the grace to get to heaven. My goodness, it took up all these elaborate systems of offerings that we don't have to do. And I don't want to personally cheapen what Jesus has done. Jesus has had to forgive me for a lot of sins and a lot of things I wish I could have a do-over on. And I can't do anything about that, but I can do everything about from today forward. And I want to appreciate what Jesus has done for me in a way that I honor him. I don't want him getting up on that cross and dying and being the ultimate sacrifice to be cheapened by the fact that I think I can go out and fail and just have him forgive my sin. So I want to think back to these times and think, man, if I mess up, I'm not trying to be perfect. We got a balance here. We're not going to be perfect. Scripture tells us that we have sin in us. We are an evil people because of the sin that's in us. But that doesn't mean we can't change. That doesn't mean we can't be different. That doesn't mean we can't strive to be different. And I want to honor what Jesus did for me by remembering how many sacrifices would have had to have taken place for just my sins alone. if I would have lived 3,000 years ago, for example. So I just want you to be encouraged, but also challenged to live a better life. Not trying to be perfect, but just to be better, to honor what Jesus did for you. As we move over into Mark chapter 5, this is one of my favorite stories. We actually saw this in a smaller account in Matthew chapter 8, but Mark gives us a little bit more detail, and this is where Jesus heals a demon-possessed man. So it says this man lived in the burial caves. The people around there could not restrain him, that he would snap chains and shackles. And I think it's funny that we see this today, right when we just compared the Nazarite in Numbers to Samson. Samson was known by his strength. Before he was deceived and his hair was cut, he was known by his strength. And now we come over and see that also Satan could give that strength to someone. So God gives the supernatural strength to Samson because he's been set apart as a Nazarite. But then we come over into the New Testament and see that a demon-possessed man has this equal or massive strength. Maybe not equal to Samson's, but he had this massive strength. I'm telling you, this dude was evil. He could snap chains and shackles. But when Jesus came around, it says the man saw him, the man ran to him, and the man bowed before him. And he said, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, don't torture me." Here's what I want you to see. Even the demons believe in God. Even the demons know Jesus. I've spent a lot of time in sermons and on these encouragements saying it's got to be more than us knowing Jesus. We have to be repenting and changing and trying to live a set apart life and doing the things that Jesus talked about in the Sermon on the Mount and early in Matthew, where he says, these are the things you need to do essentially for me to know you. So I think too many of us get caught up thinking, well, I know who Jesus is. I know who God is. Yeah, well, so do demons, okay? This demon-possessed man, and it tells us when Jesus says, "What's your name?" He says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And Legion refers to approximately 2,000. That would have been a legion would have been a 2,000 person Roman army. So in that time, that would have been a term they would have used to reference about 2,000. So the demon tells Jesus, "My name is Legion, for there are many of us." So this is a man possessed by 2,000 demons. And all 2,000 of them knew who Jesus was. They bowed before him. Scripture says every knee will bow. This is a living example of where 2,000 demons bowed before Jesus. They knew Jesus. They even said things, Son of the Most High God. They believe in God. But they choose not to follow him. They choose to be in opposition of him. It's kind of interesting because Matthew says 2 men were demon-possessed. Mark says 1 man. And I don't want to get caught up in that detail. This is the example of where 2 people are telling a story and they've got it slightly different. Don't let that hurt your faith in the story. It doesn't make the story any less true. It's just different perspectives, but it doesn't really matter. Whether you had 2 men possessed by demons or 1 man possessed by demons, you had many, many demons, and those demons recognized Jesus. So don't lose sight of that. That's the important thing here. So as we talked about back in Matthew, Jesus sends the 2,000 demons into a herd of pigs. And I've said this before, but in case you missed that one, doesn't it seem crazy that Jesus would send these demons into a herd of pigs and they would run off cliffs? Why would Jesus hurt those herdsmen? But then you stop and think, wait a second, a pig was an unclean animal. In a Jewish community, they wouldn't have pigs. So why would there be a herd of pigs here? Remember, Jesus has gone to this other place, this other region, and they actually worshiped other gods. And these pigs would have been used for sacrifices, just like we would have seen the bulls, goats, and sheep over here when we're touching in the Old Testament. Just as those would have been used as sacrifices to God, these pigs would have been used as sacrifices to false gods. So Jesus pulled a 2-for-1. I love that. I know I brought that up before in Matthew, but I'm bringing it up again because sometimes Jesus does what we see as one thing, but it has multiple purposes. There's another purpose I'm going to get to in a minute. That says the crowd saw the man healed. So they've been terrified and scared of this guy. Now they see him healed, but they beg Jesus to leave them alone. Guys, not everyone we come in contact with wants Jesus. Everyone deserves him. Everyone can have him, but not all of them want him. This story makes no sense. The crowd is scared to death of this demon-possessed man. They see him healed. They see what Jesus did, and they say, leave us alone. They were not a godly people. The healed man begged Jesus to go with him, but Jesus says, no, go home to your family and tell them what has happened. See, the man said, Jesus, you healed me, let me go with you. But Jesus says, no, I have a different purpose for you. Jesus healed him, and he basically made him an instant evangelist. I want you to think about that for a moment. Jesus didn't tell him to go off to rabbi school. Jesus today wouldn't have told him to go off to seminary. Jesus said, I healed you. Go tell everybody. So guys, here's your encouragement from that. You go tell people what Jesus has done for you. You don't have to tell them everything in Scripture. You don't have to walk them delicately through the entire Bible. Do what this demon-possessed man did. When he was healed, Jesus said, go tell them what I've done. So you do that. Just go tell people what Jesus has done for you. I've got a long list of what he's done for me. And that's all I do is share that when I witness. Let that be the reason that people want Jesus. Here's what's interesting. It's believed that this man who went and evangelized these 10 towns it talks about here in Mark, those 10 towns became the place of refuge when the Jews had to flee the city of Jerusalem when the Romans invaded in AD 70. So see, Jesus cast out the demons. Jesus did away with the pigs, and Jesus prepared for the future. He got more than a 2-for-1. He got a 3-for-1. But then he set this stage for us to see that not everyone will want that healing. Not everyone will be encouraged by that healing. You spend your time talking to the people that want to hear, that are hungry for change and need hope. I hope you've been encouraged by this, and I'm going to leave you today with the blessing we started with. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his shalom peace. Have a great day.